Act 3, the battle for the human heart. Act 3 begins in darkness. Darkness over the deep, and God's breath hovering over the waters. It's like a symphony or a concert about to begin, the hush in the darkness before the first notes. Or like the darkness of your bedroom before someone flings open the curtains to the new day. And not just any day, Christmas Day. Suddenly, a word is spoken, and there is light. Another word is spoken, and the great canopy of the heavens is revealed, a sky more blue than you've ever seen it. Another word is spoken, and the great land masses rise out of the seas. Yet another word, and the forests and the meadows and the plant life fills the earth. Cabernet grapes drip from the vine, and blackberries burst forth on their bushes. Linger here a moment and feel God's happiness with it all. Don't rush to Genesis 3 and the fall of man. Stay in Genesis 1 for a moment. Stay in the creation story. It is an astonishing world. If you learned about Eden in Sunday school with flannel graphs, you missed something. You have to picture the most beautiful scenes on earth that you have ever beheld. The first time you ever saw mountains, real mountains, or the open sea, or the prairie in full bloom. Linger here a moment and feel God's happiness with it all. A world young and unspoiled, a world with dew still on it, to borrow Norman MacLean's wonderful phrase. Don't rush to Genesis 3 and the fall of man. Stay here in Genesis 1 for a moment. Stay here at the dawn of creation. You have to picture the most beautiful scenes you've ever seen on earth. The prairie in full bloom, or the Alps under a winter snow, or the African savanna with thunder clouds over it. And then picture it all on the day it was born. It's the Shire in its innocence. It's the scene in the Garden of the Mission with Iguazu Falls. It's the opening of The Lion King. And it doesn't stop there. Into this amazing world, God opens His hand and all of the animals spring forth. The birds, hawks, and herons, and pelicans of all things. And the fish of the sea, whales and dolphins and fish of 1,000 colors and designs. And on the prairies and the plains, immense herds of wild horses and buffalo and gazelle running like the wind. A wonder the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy. A great hurrah goes up from the heavens. It is an astonishing world that we live in, and we have grown dull to it. We try and describe it as scientific. It is not normal or scientific in any sense of the word. The world we live in is as fantastic as any fairy tale. I mean, really now. Peacocks? Butterflies? Elephants? Yes, it is a world made for romance. You see, creation unfolds like a great work of art. It starts with uncut stone or a rough sketch or a lump of clay. And then God begins to work with the elements. First, large motions on a sweeping scale, right? Light and dark, land and sea, heaven and earth. And then He comes back through for a second pass with color and detail and finer lines, right? The forests and the meadows and all of the flowers in their array. And then the animal kingdom and its stunning diversity. You see how creation is swelling towards a crescendo? It's getting better and better, more glorious, more noble. I mean, a tulip is an amazing thing, but it does not compare to a wild horse. It's growing in its intricacy and its complexity. And then God does something absolutely astounding. And then God said, let us make a man in our own image, in our own likeness, and let him rule over all of the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and all of the creatures on the earth. And so God made mankind in His own image. Male and female, He created them. Oh, you have to picture the scene in Braveheart where the rugged William Wallace and the beautiful Muron are riding together bareback through the highlands of Scotland, wading through streams and sitting to talk as if for the very first time. You have to picture the scene on the bow of the Titanic. You remember? Where Jack is out on the front of the ship and Rose comes and says that she's changed her mind. And he leads her up to the rail and he shows her the colors of the sunset and the sea, an emerald sea they are slicing through. And their first kiss. You have to remember the scene in the Fellowship of the Ring in the Garden of Rivendell, where the great warrior Aragorn and the Lady Arwen steal away in the moonlight to the bridge. Ladies, remember the bridge scene? Also to share a kiss. We are haunted by Eden. It finds its way into nearly every story. We've heard a lot about original sin, but not nearly enough about original glory. Why does a woman long to be found beautiful? Why does a man hope to be found brave? Because we remember that we were once more than we are now. There are echoes in our hearts of Eden. And then God gives to us a freedom that just staggers me. He endows us with qualities like His own. He gives us the ability to reason and laughter and a love of story. And then He gives us a freedom, the power to love. It is the greatest joy of Eden. It is the quality that we bear that is most like His own. And with that quality comes a staggering risk, because we also have the freedom to reject Him. Good grief! What is He thinking? He knows what free-willed creatures can do. He's already suffered one massive betrayal in the rebellion of the angels. He knows how we will use our freedom, what hell it will unleash on earth. Why? Why does He give us freedom? Well, as Phil Yancey says, power can do everything but the most important thing. It cannot control love. The guards in a concentration camp, for example, possess unlimited power over you. If you are their prisoner, they can force you to do anything. Eat human excrement, kill and bury your mother, renounce your God. There is one thing they have never been able to force anyone to do: love them. It's why God seems shy to use His power in Act 3. He did not create us to be puppets on a string or cringing subjects. He created us to be lovers, to be His friends and allies, to join Him in this great story. This is the answer to what C.S. Lewis called the problem of pain. Why would a good and loving God create a world where evil is possible? Doesn't He care about our happiness? Isn't He good? Well, He does care, and He is good. In fact, He cares so much, He gives us the possibility of the greatest happiness of all, which is to be loved and to love. And with that happiness and with that possibility comes a freedom that every person must enjoy. We are free to choose for or against Him. And this is where our story takes its tragic turn. For evil was lurking in that garden. If you'll recall, the great captain was once glorious also, more glorious than we, and powerful beyond compare. And he was hurled down but not destroyed. And he waited his time. He bided for his moment, lurking in the shadows. Satan comes to us in the garden, and he whispers to us the same lie he used with the angels. You cannot trust the heart of God. He's holding out on you. Look, you've got to reach for what you want. You've got to take matters into your own hands. Rewrite the story. Give yourself a little better part. We believed him. And paradise was lost. Something in our hearts shifted. And in that shifting we reached, and in that reaching we fell from grace. So Helen betrays Menelaus and all of Greece and runs off to Troy with her lover. So Boromir betrays the fellowship in his lust for the ring. So Edmund betrays his own brother and sisters and all of Narnia and sides with the White Witch. And our glory faded as Milton said, faded so soon. Have you ever wondered why life doesn't come anywhere near the desires that you have in your heart? I mean, it does not match up. These longings that we have for beauty, intimacy, and adventure. The fall explains it. The ship has gone down. Winter has come to Narnia. Commodus commits murder, and Rome falls under its most wicked emperor ever. Or as 1 John has it, now the whole world lies under the power of the evil one. It is more tragic than we can possibly imagine. But consider also this. Every story has a rescue. Jack will come to rescue Rose, and Wallace will rise up to rescue Scotland, and Maximus will come to free all of Rome, and Aslan will come to rescue Narnia. Every story has a rescue because yours does. See, on the day that we fell, Adam and Eve sort of rush off to hide in the bushes. God comes looking for them. Adam, where are you? It is the beginning of a long and sad and valiant pursuit of the human heart. First in Noah, and then in Abraham, and then in the people of Israel, you see God looking for people who will turn to Him from the heart, to be His allies once more. You get to the prophets, and again, Yancey says, it's like listening to a lover's quarrel through the apartment wall. God says in Isaiah, I long to be compassionate to you because you are precious in my sight and I love you. And in Jeremiah, but you are a swift she-camel in heat, sniffing the wind in her craving, running here and there after all her other lovers. And we have them, friends. Oh, we have them. We all have other lovers, other things that we have given our hearts to. Reading the prophets, you get a glimpse into the heart of God, and He sounds like a wounded lover. You have been false to me. You get to the end of the Old Testament, and it looks like evil wins. The people reject God. There's 400 years of silence, no communication between heaven and earth. It appears that all is lost. But He has something up His sleeve. Kierkegaard has this wonderful parable where he says, suppose there was a king who loved a humble maiden. Now, no king was like this king. Every other ruler trembled before his power. He had the strength to crush every opponent. No one dared breathe a word against him. And yet this mighty king was melted by love for a humble maiden. How could he confess his love for her? In a way, his kingliness tied his hands. If he just comes to her cottage in the woods with his armed escort and the bright banners waving, it would overwhelm her. If he just took her to the palace and made her his queen, crowned her with jewels, clothed her with robes, she might say she loved him. Would she? Really? How could he know? He didn't want a subject. He wanted a lover. So in Kierkegaard's parable, the king disguises himself as a beggar. And he comes to her door in the woods alone to win her heart. Yes, it's the most beautiful of all love stories. The Ancient of Days sneaks in to the enemy camp under cover of night. He comes as a carpenter from Nazareth to win our hearts. But Kierkegaard's parable does not capture the cost the king will have to pay to ransom his beloved. He will have to die to rescue her. And so Maximus gives his life in the arena to set Rome free. And so Aslan dies on the stone table. So Jack gives his life for Rose. As the scripture says, the Son of Man came to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus of Nazareth is executed upon a cross to pay for our ransom and for our betrayal. to win us back from the kingdom of darkness, to bring us to God's own heart, to show us beyond a shadow of a doubt that we matter, that the heart of God is good, and that we matter to Him, matter more than tongue can tell. It's at this point that the story comes to another hush. It is the stunned silence of the crowd in Gladiator. Maximus has just hurled down the Prince of Darkness. Commodus has been slain. But it is a blow that will cost Maximus his life. For the first time ever, the bloodthirsty mob is silent. They are speechless. It is the stunned silence of the crowd in Braveheart at the execution of Wallace. It is the silence of the crowd that came to witness the execution of Jesus. Somehow we know that something of great importance has just taken place. And then a Roman soldier speaks. Surely this was the Son of God. He gets it. He suddenly understands the story. The life, the death, the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth proves once and for all and beyond a shadow of a doubt that we can trust Him, that His heart toward us is good, and that our hearts do matter. Now that is not the end of the story. It is not even the end of the act. We live still in the middle or towards the end of Act 3, a love story set in the midst of a life and death battle. I'll say more about that in a minute. But now I want to lift our eyes to the horizon, to Act 4, to see what the future holds. What does Act 4 promise us? Do we have a future? There is so much more to say about Act 3, and it sheds so much light on our lives. For one thing, no wonder we long for beauty and intimacy and adventure. We were made for Eden. This isn't the world in which our heart was created for, and it isn't wrong to long for those things. Of course we have these desires in us for life, real life. We were created to live in that. And secondly, your story does not begin with sin. It doesn't begin in Genesis chapter 3. It begins in Genesis chapter 1 with a glory and a dignity bestowed upon you. Sin is not the deepest thing about you. The image of God is. And that's what makes us so valuable. That's what gives us such honor. And that's what makes sin so tragic. And thirdly, Christianity is not about going to church and saying our prayers and minding our manners. Can you begin to see that it is a love story set in the midst of a life and death battle? That explains our days. And if we'll begin to take that perspective into our life, it will shed light on so many things. For God is still coming for us as our hero. And there are so many places in our lives that we still need Him to rescue us. And also, the villain is still coming after us as our enemy. And there are so many ways he's trying to take us out, especially at the level of the heart. And that's why Proverbs tells us to watch over our heart with everything we've got, because out of the heart flows the wellspring of life. We live in a love story set in the midst of a life and death battle. And if you'll go back now to those movies that you'll love, you'll begin to see in them some of the lessons that we need to learn for our own journey and for our own battle. This is going to take courage. It's going to take love. It's going to take sacrifice. In fact, it's going to take everything you are and everything you've got.